Hello, friends. My name is Iris Josephina. I'm your host, and you are listening to the Planting Seeds podcast. On the Planting Seeds podcast, we explore how we can cultivate a more gentle relationship with our cyclical bodies, the earth, each other, and the world around us through using our senses, science, the subtle, and the sacred. On Planting Seeds, we talk about all those topics you've always wanted to talk about. We are shamelessly opening up the conversations that we all so desperately need to settle in our precious bodies and relate to each other in a more open, truthful, and empowered way. I'm so glad you're here today. So welcome everyone to a new episode of the Planting Seeds podcast. I'm super excited to introduce you to Kim van der Veer. We follow each other on Instagram, and she is a mother, a yoga teacher, and an Ayurveda coach. In her life, she focuses on Ayurveda in combination with motherhood, and she's super passionate about women's wellness and bringing Ayurveda into our modern life. Welcome, Kim. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you, Iris. I'm also super excited. Like you said, we follow each other for quite a while now on Instagram, and I'm also super impressed by your work and your knowledge about hormones and women's health. So let's see what we can explore today together.
Yeah. Before we fully dive in, I was wondering whether you could take a moment to introduce the people to what Ayurveda is, because I'm sure that not everybody knows what Ayurveda is. So could you maybe give us a little introduction about that?
Yes, of course. If you start to read about Ayurveda, or if you go to Google and type in Ayurveda, I think the first thing you will find is an Ayurvedic massage or Ayurvedic foods. And this is, of course, wonderful that Ayurveda is becoming more and more popular. But Ayurveda is so much more than only the foods and only the massage and only the practices we bring in with Ayurveda, like the self-care system. In essence, Ayurveda is a way to broaden your horizon, or a way to open your consciousness and to become more aware of who you really are. So that is the main aim of Ayurveda, to become more conscious. It's actually the same as we have in yoga, for example, but yoga starts with the mind and Ayurveda starts with the body. You can say that a healthy body is very helpful to open your consciousness, of course. Because if you are not healthy, if your body is sick, it becomes harder to focus on creating more health and beauty and happiness in your life. So that's the reason that Ayurveda starts with the body, starts quite physically, but you should never forget that in essence, it's a way to become more conscious. Now, if you would split up the word Ayurveda, you will notice that Ayurveda comes from two Sanskrit terms, Arya meaning life and Veda meaning knowledge. And that means that Ayurveda is translated as the knowledge of life or the wisdom of life. And it basically gives you tools to become the most happiest and healthiest version of yourself. And it does this via a system where we go back to the 5 elements theory. It's the same thing we have in Chinese medicine, which is super interesting if you ask me, because Chinese medicine and Ayurveda came up around the same time in different parts of the world. They say basically the same thing in other words, but they also have the elements. And back then there was no internet, there was no phone, so they couldn't call each other like, hey, did you find out this and that? And still they say the same thing. So for me, it's also a good indicator of how worthy this knowledge is. But that was a little sidestep. So Ayurveda, translated as the wisdom of life, begins with the 5 elements theory. And these 5 elements explain actually everything inside and around us. They are used in Ayurveda as a metaphor to explain the world. And these 5 elements can be bind together into 3 different doshas, 3 different energies, which run all the functions in your body, and which are also responsible for the 3 main mind-body types. And basically, actually, if you start to learn more about Ayurveda, this will be the first thing you will notice, that Ayurveda is a personal healthcare system. It doesn't believe in a one-pill-fits-all solution, and it actually says, depending on your mind-body type, depending on your personal dosha, you have to adapt your food and your lifestyle. And yeah, you could say that everyone has a unique set of qualities and a unique set of elements. So even though there are 3 main types, everyone has his or her own unique set. So that means that it is not as easy as it sounded. It's not that for every type there is a handbook. There is no handbook for no one, only your personal guide. And this makes Ayurveda quite fun and not static at all. It is changing with the seasons, it's changing with the circumstances. And it looks not only at your mind-body type in the way you were born, which we call Prakriti in Ayurveda, but it also takes into account everything in and around us and everything that kind of overshadows your birth constitution. So for example, if you live in the Netherlands and we are in the season of spring, you need something else than when there is autumn. And that is because those elements will also reflect in nature. And this makes Ayurveda super, super dynamic. And yeah, you need to adapt it according to your personal needs in a particular moment. And also, it is a system which works very preventative. So, of course, you can use Ayurveda to come back in balance, to bring your balance back. But eventually, we try to live a healthy lifestyle, including healthy foods, which fit our personal needs in order to stay healthy. So you will not go out of balance. So it's preventative. And that's why the food and the lifestyle is so important. It forms an important part of Ayurveda.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like Ayurveda is such a vast system that we can apply to so many different aspects of our life because it looks so holistically at the body. And I love that. I love how it is set up. So thank you for laying that out and explaining how Ayurveda works. And I can imagine that the people who are listening right now, that they think like, oh my goodness, like this could be something that I could incorporate in my own life. And for me, I have definitely looked into Ayurveda when I was trying to balance my menstrual cycle. And I am curious how Ayurveda looks at the menstrual cycle and the imbalances in our cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that's quite an important part we look at when it comes to women's health. Actually, you could say that your cycle or your actual menstruation gives a lot of information on how healthy you are. And it also gives an information on which dosha is causing the imbalance. Those doshas are energies, and they are responsible for functions within your body. For example, Vata dosha, which is mainly the wind element, but also space elements, is of course responsible for all the movements in your body. Meaning that if Vata dosha is out of balance, the movements, including the moving of your menstrual cycle and the blood going out, will be disturbed. And also for Pitta dosha, there is a function which is transformation. And if Pitta dosha is disturbed, of course, there will be more fire in your system. And you can, for example, experience an excessive flow, that there is a lot of blood. And for Kapha dosha, it's responsible for lubrication in the body, hydration, and of course, stability. And if Kapha dosha goes out of balance, it will reflect in the menstrual cycle as stagnation, which can mean that there is a blocked flow and you can experience, for example, cramps, but there can also be fibroids and things that can happen when there is a blockage in your body. So those 3 doshas are actually, those are actually the reasons that you are going out of balance. So in Ayurveda, the doshas, often also referred to as dushas, are the ones that can create an imbalance. And that is why in Ayurveda, we always bring back balance by balancing the doshas. And this may sound a little vague to you, so I want to explain it a little bit further. And that is by the principle of like increases like and opposite balance. This is the main principle of Ayurveda. Ayurveda comes from 6 different philosophies. And one of those philosophies is the Samkhya philosophy, in which the natural law of karma plays an important role. So meaning that every action has a reaction. So if there is an imbalance, you bring in the opposites. And this principle is called like increases like, which means, again, that the opposite quality balances. So, for example, if you notice that there is a blockage in your body and therefore there is, for example, no ovulation or the ovulation is blocked, then you want to clean those channels. You want to clear up the shrotas, we say in Ayurveda. So, the egg can go through and will not be blocked. And in this way, you pick your foods and you pick your lifestyle. So you can think of doing a cleanse, for example, or eating more detoxifying foods to get rid of the blockage, which can be caused by ama, which is indigested foods. And you try to increase the agni, increase the fire in the body. So in this way, your body can digest the ama better and the blockage can be removed. And this is also good to mention that in Ayurveda, it starts and it ends by promoting and optimizing your digestion, which is called Agni in Ayurveda. And Agni, of course, in Western medicine is the principle of the digestive enzymes, but also the hormones play an important role in your digestion. And when your digestion is out of balance, so when Agni is out of balance, there can be a cause of the 3 different doshas. So if, for example, your digestion is very slow, it means that Kapha dosha is out of balance. If your digestion goes very fast, it means that there is too much fire and then Pitta dosha is out of balance. And if it means that the digestion is very irregular and it goes from fast to slow and constipation and dry stools and things like that, then it means that Vata dosha is out of balance. And this can also be a signal for you to recognize and to put on how your menstruation is doing, because also in the different phases of the menstruation, the different doshas are in play. So it all starts, of course, with an ovulation. That's the first step in your menstruation, because without an ovulation, there won't be a menstruation. So this ovulation phase, we call in Ayurveda the Kapha phase, because everything in the body, of course, is more juicier. There are more lipids and more fats. And that's also why this is the period that you have more self-esteem and that you feel super confident. And that this is the period that you actually are launching for a romantic night with your partner. That's quite natural, actually. That's a natural process. And Kapha dosha is there to balance this. There is more water element, there is more earth element. So you feel more grounded and steady. Whereas, for example, the Pitta phase, the days before the menstruation starts, so the premenstrual phase, you will notice that the body temperature starts to rise a little. And it is also the period where you can experience mood swings and a little bit more of irritation and anger, which are, of course, Pitta emotions. And in this phase, obviously, it's quite important to bring down the heat. Meaning that you can go for an aloe vera shot or maybe for a nice swim if it's summer, or drinking more green juices, eating more salads. The premenstrual phase is actually the phase to balance Pitta dosha. And of course, obviously, if you have more fire in your system, you will notice that the typical Pitta imbalances, like having acne or mood swings or anger or hot flushes and things like that, you will be more prone to that because you have in your own nature already a lot of fire. And that means that the premenstrual phase is for you, especially a phase to take into account, that you bring in this Pitta balancing lifestyle and diet. And then the actual menstruation phase is a Vata time. And like I said already in the beginning, that's because Vata is responsible for all the movement in your body and also for the movement of the blood going out the body, which is governed by a wind element in the body, which we name Apana Vayu. And that means that during your menstruation, it is important to take into account that you are in a Vata phase and that you take rest, that you make sure that you are not doing too much and that you eat warm, nourishing, light to digest foods to support also your acne, your digestive fire. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And I love that Ayurveda naturally recognizes menstruation as a Vata time where the energy is lower and where we naturally need rest. And I think that is something that our society is not recognizing enough. The thing that does surprise me a little bit is that the premenstrual phase is a more heated time in Ayurveda, where we may need, like you said, more like greens or green juice. While for people in the northern hemispheres, because Ayurveda, of course, comes from India, where it's warmer, but in the northern hemisphere, I would say that we need more like root vegetables, things that are like slower digestible and spread the energy slower throughout the body. So I think it's very interesting how different systems look at that. But indeed, if a system is out of balance, like you say, where we have more of that fire, I can totally imagine that we need to like water the fire, if that's a correct way to say it. Like
what you say does make sense to me, because you say, like, in our society, we say that we need foods that are slower to digest, meaning that your acne should be higher, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and acne is, of course, governed by Pitta dosha. So in that sense, it might be the same principle.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like I said, Ayurveda comes from India, where it is inherently most of the time warmer than where we are from. So it's also, like you said in the beginning, like everything is governed also by everything that goes around us, which is also the seasonal wheel of the year. Like we go through bigger seasons. And as you said before, like in the season of spring, our body may need something else than, for example, in the winter time, according to our type. So that's super, super interesting and super valuable. Thank you for sharing that.
Very welcome. Yeah, and I also think what you mentioned, that the problem is that we grow up in a society, where menstruation is seen just as an inconvenience. And we have all those marketing commercials and where they say like, oh, it's your menstruation and we have the perfect tool for you so you can go on with your life as you are used to. Just buy this and that and take some painkillers and put this in your underpants and you will be fine. Go for a swim, go for kite surfing. You can do everything. And this is, of course, very, very disturbing for the menstruation, as it is. Yeah, it is going against your hormonal balance. It's going against nature. And one of the biggest problems we face nowadays when it comes to hormonal balance is caused by that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I definitely see how some of the things that we are advised to do in our societies are actually very harmful for our menstrual cycles, but also our fertility and all of the things that actually keep us healthy in our bodies.
Yes.
So,
we actually also say that the purpose behind a woman's period is, of course, the protection of the reproductive organs. So this menstrual blood, which is called Artava in Ayurveda, is antibacterial and antiviral, and it cleanses the uterus and the cervix and the vagina. And therefore it is this proper and good flow is needed to protect actually the reproductive organs.
Yes, that's so important. And all of that is, of course, going to influence how we experience our conception, how we experience our pregnancy, and how we experience even our postpartum. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, the postpartum is for me like my favorite topic, so to say, also because we live in this society where everyone wants to be back in shape as soon as possible. And I remember especially after giving birth with Mickey and also now actually with Most, that so many people are coming to me, wow, Kim, you look so fantastic and your body is back in shape and how did you do this? And it's so wonderful. And I also want that. And I'm like, whoa, the whole society is so focused on the outside. And actually, although it's, of course, super lovely that people are giving you such a compliment, I would rather have that women say to each other like, whoa, you did it. You did an amazing job. You delivered a baby. You created a new life. How do you feel? Are you exhausted? Can I do anything for you? And that is something we really lack in today's society. And actually, we say in Ayurveda, we have a very famous saying, which goes like 42 days for 42 years. And we basically say in Ayurveda that the first 42 days after giving birth play an important role of the next 42 years, meaning that your hormonal balance, including the way how you will experience menopause, are already affected by how you are treating yourself in that postpartum period. And it all comes back to taking enough rest, to give your body the space it needs to balance. And although I said in the beginning that there is no one pill fits all solution, we can actually say that almost for every woman, the Vata, so the wind element, Vata dosha, will go out of balance after giving birth. And the reason that is because, of course, Vata dosha is connected to the nervous system. Also for nerves, there is movement. And the nervous system, Majja Dhatu in Ayurveda, is very much connected to Vata dosha. And after giving birth, your nervous system is open. And it almost feels as if the most disturbing wind is blowing through your house with the doors and the windows wide open. And that is why taking enough rest and balancing this wind element and balancing this space element is so important. And therefore, we need to acknowledge that we need rest. And Ayurveda says actually at least 1 week in bed, taking rest. Then the second week, you want to be in and around your bed. The third week, you want to maybe go for a little trip, a little journey into your living room. And then the last weeks of the 6-week period, you can move around the house, but that's it. And it's very important that you keep taking into account that your nervous system is overloaded. I think that every mother knows what I'm talking about right now, because you are super alert. There is a baby, and the moment the baby gives one little sigh, you need to do something. And that is, of course, super imbalancing to your nervous system. And it continues, and that on top of giving birth. So you are already super depleted by giving birth. Even if you had a fantastic birth, an easy birth, or if you have experienced it like that, even then you have lost a lot of fluids, you have lost a lot of vata, and you have this space element being super dominant in your body, because the baby, which of course extra earth and water element within your body, is out. This can create anxiety and all the emotions that come with vata dosha. And taking care in these 42 days after giving birth is therefore so important, because if you wait too long and if you want to go back to society and back to normal, which is not possible actually if you ask me, but that's another topic. But if you want to be back in shape as soon as possible and you allow many people to come by, for example, to visit your baby, your nervous system will get an extra overload, and this will create an imbalance, which can actually lead to many imbalances in the years after giving birth. And it will at least start with not allowing your hormones to balance, and that can create, of course, many diseases.
Wow, this information, it's like if I think about how my grandmother speaks about this postpartum period and how important it is to get support and rest, and how we in our generation almost like completely lost that. It's so important that you revive this through your work and spread this knowledge to women and their partners, because it's essential. And I love how Ayurveda says 42 days for the next 42 years. It's really mind-blowing to me that is not common sense knowledge in our societies. And I recently read this post on Instagram that said that postpartum is one of the biggest hormonal shifts that we have in our lives. And it can be compared, like it's not, of course, a literal comparison, but it could be compared to taking 100 birth control pills every single day. Like that is the amount of hormonal change that we experience after we've given birth. So that's huge. And there is so little respect for it, and there is so little knowledge about it. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you do this work and bring this knowledge to people, because as you say, it sets you up for the next 42 years. And that means like it sets you up for health. It sets your body up for health for the next 42 years and your ability to be there for your child.
Exactly. And what you say, like this hormonal change, of course, change is also driven by Vata dosha. So this hormonal change should be balanced out with this principle of like increases like and opposite balance. So if there is too much movement, you need to bring in rest. So it's so logic. if you follow the natural laws, it's so extremely logic, but in some way we have lost it. And it's time to reclaim this basic knowledge and to reclaim our health.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And what I also really love in how you explain Ayurveda is that they don't see our menstrual cycles and the cycles that we move through in our lives as a vacuum. They really see it as a continuum, like one phase influences the other, and they really understand that. And I feel that that is one of the most important things that we can learn from Ayurveda.
Yes, you mean like the circadian rhythm and living in cycles and things like that.
Yes, and I also mean that how we take care of our menstrual cycles has an impact on how we conceive, how we get pregnant, how we give birth, how we experience postpartum.
Yeah, actually, we say if you want to conceive, also in the pre-conceptual phase, we do a lot with Ayurveda. And actually, Ayurveda is there to support life, to support new life. That's the main thing Ayurveda focuses on a physical level. So if we want to support new life, we say in Ayurveda it already starts before conception. And in general, you can say that we want to have 3 menstrual cycles in a row in which you experience a healthy cycle, meaning that the blood is not clogged, that the blood is clear red like fireflies, and that there is no slime with the menstruation, no mucus, and that you don't experience cramps, no pains, no mood swings. And if all this is in check, then you can say, okay, my menstruation is healthy. And if you have 3 of those in a row, then you can conceive.
Wow, I love that.
It makes so much sense, eh?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And now people are just like, oh, let me stop my hormonal birth control and let's try for a baby, like without, knowing the state of their body, without knowing how their menstrual cycle is. Like everything you say makes so much sense to me. Thank you so much.
And also, if you experience an imbalance in your menstruation, then you have to look back. That's what you're saying, of course. You have to look back what happened in the weeks before, because Ayurveda believes that we are built from those elements, and these elements build your body. These elements build the dhatus. And the last dhatu is Shukra dhatu, Artava dhatu, and it depends on the health of the previous dhatus. So everything we consume in terms of foods will either build or break down your menstrual cycle. So if there is a problem in the cycle, you have to look back to find the cause. And then you can bring back balance by bringing in the opposites.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It makes so much sense to me. So much sense. To end, I would like to ask you, there's one question I always ask in this podcast is, how do you plant seeds for positive change in the world? And what is something that you would want to give to people? What do you want people to know as a last note?
Take rest. It's the best advice I ever got was, Kim, take it all a little slower. Take a step back, take rest, because otherwise, if you are running so fast, you will not only harm your body, harm your mind, but you will also miss your life.
That's so true. So true. Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this wisdom with us. It's been so valuable, and I'm so grateful that you were here with me today.
Yes, thank you too. And for those out there, if you want to learn a little bit more about Ayurveda and how it can benefit you, I have a website which is called Start with Rasa. And there is a page events, and there you will find everything like new workshops and also pregnancy courses. So maybe I will meet you soon.
Yes. And would you like also to share your social media platform so people can also find you there?
Yes, it's at Kim VD So VDVEER.
Perfect. I will also share everything in the show notes so people can easily find it. Kim, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sure people will learn so much from this episode.
Thank you, Iris. Have a lovely day.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, with your friends, with your family, post about it on social media, or leave a rating or a review on all the platforms. To catch all the latest news from me, you can follow at the Planting Seeds Podcast on Instagram or at Cycle Seeds on Instagram, or you can go to my website www.cycleseeds.com. Thank you again so much, and I'll see you next time.